Our next speaker is Megan Matthews. Megan's background is in bringing arts and business together. So she works with the College of Arts and Communication, teaching nonprofit arts management. And her passion is all about creative enterprise programming. That's what she's about. So I asked her, I said, can you tell me something a little bit quirky about you? She said, I am getting to become a fan of Doctor Who, right? That's the piece you want to kind of throw out there. But your passion is about bringing the worlds of art and business together. Just going to share a small kind of a story with you, which I know she and I relate to and we talk about. There was a little girl in a classroom painting away. So it's a class where they're all painting and drawing, and she's sitting in the back and just drawing away furiously. And the teacher looks around the classroom and says, this girl's never engaged. What is she doing? So she walked up and asked the student, the little girl who's drawing away, says, what are you drawing? She says, I'm drawing a picture of God. And the teacher said, but no one knows what God looks like. Her response was, they will in a minute. Right? So that's something which we share all the time about how creative people can be, and to bring creative and business together. To tell you more about it, Megan Matthews.
So I had to share the Doctor Who thing because my 15-year-old daughter, she's been introducing me to Doctor Who, and I'm kind of embarrassed to admit it, but she'll be glad to know that I shouted it out to everybody in the world. As Shotan said, Megan Matthews, and I teach arts management classes, I teach business management classes, and I have been working for 20 years with creatives, artists, business people, community activists, politicians. My passion has been trying to bring all these folks together. Because what I've found is that actually they're not that different, right? And I'll talk about that in a second. But you can ask, why do I care that artists are at the table when a new product is being developed? Or you can ask, why do I care that creatives are at the table when a community is developing a new economic development strategy? Why do I care that artists think about earned income and revenue and the consumer and how to distribute their product? Because having worked in this field for 20 years, I know that the arts help people think about things in a different way. They help people relate to someone unlike them. They help people respond to change in an effective and productive way. Businesses help people have decent, productive lives. They give them money to buy houses and buy clothes for their kids. When a business is run well, they can make a significant change and improvement in the community. That's why I care both sides of this world. Both sides, the arts and the business, people want to make a living, to be happy, to be healthy, to make change, to impact their world positively. They just go about it in different ways. And when we work together on this, we're better together. So let me give you some examples of where businesses have brought in creatives to work with them. For instance, Hallmark, greeting cards, Hallmark. What I found out is that they actually have what they call Hallmarket, where their employees that create artwork outside of their business lives, they actually allow them a place to sell the artwork to whomever is interested, because they're recognizing that their employees have this creative side to them that needs to be recognized. They also have a 6-month sabbatical for creative employees. Can you imagine? Just think about this. Being paid for 6 months to go be creative. And some of you, but the thing is, creative, there isn't just one way to do it. I mean, some people say, I couldn't even think of what I would do with that 6 months. I'm going to talk to you in a minute about how you might walk through that process. But Hallmark recognizes that their students, their employees need to have creativity. The Guthrie Theater, Minneapolis, they work with lawyers on improv techniques for the courtroom. Can you not imagine lawyers needing to be able to do improv, like on the moment, being able to respond to something they didn't expect? So theaters, the Guthrie Theater in particular, goes in and works with them to help them do this better. They use staged readings. They use where they don't have to act it out, but they work with lawyers and people in the law profession to work through complex legal issues. You talk about the Kohler Company right here in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. They've got an arts and technology program where they bring in artists from all over the world for up to 6 months, and they give these artists access to everything, right? Artists can use all the foundry work, all the processes, all the tools, and artists have been able to create work that has been basically distributed all over the country. The cool thing is, it's not just about the artists benefiting from this. The community, Sheboygan, the artists go out into the community and they work with the John Michael Kohler Arts Center, providing programming and education opportunities for people in the creative arts. They go into the schools and they work with students in creativity and processes and training them in things. So both people benefit from this. We've got the Wagner Company in Milwaukee. I love this story. This is Christine Harris is a colleague of mine, and she tells the story all the time, but she's working on creative industries in the Milwaukee area. And the Wagner Company, not unusually, they had artists who had to have a second job because they had not figured out the whole income stream thing, and so they had to figure out how to make a living. And Christine talks about the fact that these artists worked for the Wagner Company just doing their regular job. They saw scrap metal all over the floor, and they said, could we take that and make stuff with it? And the Wagner Company, being wise, said, well, sure, okay. Do you know what has happened is that those artists have created a whole new product stream for the Wagner Company, right? They've created a whole new product that they can sell. And the artists are using their creative gifts and the talents and the things that they've used 30 years of their life to develop to help the business do better. And they get to do something that's very important to them. Doctors, another example. Doctors, did you know, I think this is so cool. Did you know that doctors actually, in their training, many schools have doctors go look at visual art to develop their critical and analytical observation skills? They make them go look at this art because when you've got visual art, you don't have like the nonverbals, right? I mean, I guess you have all the nonverbals, but you don't have movement and you don't have words and you don't have all the rest of this. So they have doctors go observe, and what it does is that when they work with a patient, they're better at figuring out how a patient is feeling and thinking and reacting to a situation just by observing versus having to do more tests, which saves money and is less invasive. So I think that's a great example of using the arts to help people do their jobs better. And finally, the last example, the worm farm. Okay, has anyone heard of the worm farm? You've been there, right? Okay, you gotta go. This is so cool. The Worm Farm Institute in Reedsburg, Wisconsin, it was basically a couple of artists bought a dairy farm up in the Sauk County, and they have two things I want to talk about. The Fermentation Fest and the Farm Art Detour. Fermentation Fest is where they do all things about fermentation and culture. So they take the agriculture, they take the local community, they create this whole festival that has taste testings and people learn how to ferment things, I don't even know, sauerkraut and things like that. But the thing is, they bring people into the community. They bring money into the community, people come and spend money, they find out more about the culture, the farmers do better, local food providers do better, it's better for everybody. And then they've also got this Farm Art Detour, which you need to go 50 miles in the middle of beautiful Sauk County, where they have public art in the middle of nowhere. Like artists will go do these installations. Farmers, okay, you know those long white things that they put in the fields where the hay is over the winter, right? Farmers will paint these things in whatever shape that they, whatever thing they want, and people will go through and tour. They have pasture performances where they have concertos in the middle of a pasture. They have roadside signs. Oh, and the last thing about this, they've got these really cool, they call them roadside culture food stands, where artists create food stands that sell art and culture, but they're beautiful. And they can get a sense of the history and the culture of that area. It's amazing, and you really need to go. Okay, so there's enough of that. So then we talk about this. So how do you can see that I'm enthusiastic, and I say, so how do you create a space for creativity? One, be intentional. When you're in a business, and you're a business manager, and you're making decisions about what to include in this time for your employees, you gotta make space for creativity. Be intentional about it. Gene Chenoweth was talking about, with me earlier about thinking positively. One thing I talk about in my class is that people spend 90% of their time figuring out what went wrong and who to blame, and 10% of their time about figuring out what's possible and what to do about it. And I say that in the creative process, you need to flip that. You need to go, 90% of your time needs to be spent, what's possible and how do we make that happen? And 10% going, okay, that didn't work so great, what do we need to do about it? Think yes and rule. Improv, theater, basically any idea, when you're in a brainstorming session, any idea you have, the only response is yes and. I have this, in class, I had a student, I have this idea, I want to have underground tubes for travel between Whitewater and Janesville because I hate driving in the roads in the winter. Okay, all the buts start coming, like, oh, that's blah, blah, impractical, whatever. But there was no yes buts. It was all yes ands in that class. And so the next thing was, you know what? We could put news along the side of those tubes, and so we could get all sorts of advertising income. I mean, think about it. If we'd spent time on was the yes but, we would never have thought about those things. Listening is a big part of the creative process. Big talkers like me, it's a skill I have to learn and practice intentionally. Also, bring creatives in early. Oftentimes, businesses tend to go, hey, you know what, let's create this thing and then we'll bring the creatives in to do it. Oh, I don't know, a logo or something. Bring them in early. Bring people in to do the creative process at the beginning of the process. They'll have more passion about it, they'll have a commitment to it, and they understand the creative process. Everybody will be better. So, creative entrepreneurship. It's like a thing, right? What I want to say about that is that sometimes people, artists, creatives, don't tend to think of themselves as entrepreneurs. I say they have a different purpose for entrepreneurship. They're not about scalability, building a big business, and moving on. They're about, I've got this thing in my soul that I must create, and I want to put it out there, which can be very frustrating for people who have the entrepreneurial mindset, like, okay, let's figure out how to distribute this and make it cheaper and all that. So you need to understand that when you're working with arts entrepreneurs, their goal in doing this is different. And that's okay, it's just different. But where we're together, where they're the same, is that arts entrepreneurs, the entrepreneurship and arts entrepreneurship and business and creativity, there's a process. It's like a loop. Right? So in order to sell a product, you need both the product and the customer, right? Without them, you don't have the process. In theater, you have the same kind of process. I have a gentleman, a friend who runs the Arts Entrepreneurship Program down in Southern Methodist University. His name is Jim Hart. He has an MFA in theater from Yale, so he knows his deal, right? He basically talks about the fact that you need to have both audience and artists and theater people to have the whole creative process. And so if that's the case, why can artists not use their consumer as a part of the process? Why do artists think that can't be a part of their process? And that's what I talk to my artists about it when I'm talking about arts entrepreneurship, is that we're really very similar. We have this an inspirational process and we work together. Okay, so why do I believe that arts and business are better together? I've gone through and told you a lot about it, but let me end with this. I believe that artists and business, when we work together, we create better products, we create stronger communities, we create better opportunities, we create more ability to adjust to the world around us, and I believe we're better together. Thanks.
I know, Megan, the Kohler company brings in artists purposefully, like I think for a year, like ceramic artists to work in their business. Are there other models out there where businesses actually bring in intentionally an artist for a year? Are there examples of that?
You know, I don't know of an example that I can throw at you right this minute, but what I can tell you is there's a national initiative called Arts and Business Partnerships where they do a lot of investigating on how arts and business work together. So this minute, I can't come up with an example, but that doesn't mean there is one. And I can when I get my newsletter all the time, they have some phenomenal examples of arts and business working together in unique and interesting ways. You know, basically sometimes businesses will have a band, like employee bands, and they have these, you know, playoffs, that kind of a thing. And it's to build relationships and to get people to feel like they're a team and to know that, wow, I have this whole other side to me that they actually appreciate. So, there you go. Anything else? I was making a joke about having you all do interpretive dance. You ready? No? Okay. Thank you very much.